Okay, we are live. Welcome back, season 2, Your Bold Voice. I'm so excited to be kicking off season 2 with one of my most favorite persons in the whole wide world, Kelli Williams. I'll introduce her here in a minute as she's sitting here smiling beautifully on the screen. But I just want to remind everybody here, Your Bold Voice Live, LinkedIn Live. I'm featuring fascinating females that bust through that comfort zone. They take risks and they own their bold voice on their terms. So I'm really excited. Season 2, here we go. I've got Kelli today and 5 more other guests over the next 5 weeks following her. I never thought when I launched this we'd even get to season 2, but here we are. Okay, we are live on LinkedIn. For those of you who are on the LinkedIn stream, we do not know you're there. I'm going to ask you to put comments in so that we know that you are out there. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce Kelli Williams, is the founder of Williams Brand Consulting, co-founder of 40 Acres Investment, and a fractional chief marketing officer for multiple Minnesota-based businesses, a professional speaker, and a dedicated business leader with a passion for personal branding, professional development, and community involvement. Kelli is the proud parent of 3 children ranging in the age from 7 to 25, and yes, I said 7 to 25, and is married to her high school best friend. Kelli sits on the Minority Business Growth Alliance and the American Marketing Association, Minnesota chapter boards, and utilizes the roles to help women and minorities grow their influence and advance. Kelli, thank you for being my guest today. I'm excited to have
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and did I also see on a post yesterday, this is your first LinkedIn Live?
This is my first LinkedIn Live. I am really excited to determine how this technology works. I'm so glad it is working.
Yes, yes. As we kicked off season 2 with the technology challenge, Kim learned something a little bit about StreamYard and the back end there. But hey, we're here. We fixed it. We're here, and just gotta embrace technology sometimes, most of the time. It is what it is. So again, for those of you who are out there that are live with us on LinkedIn, step up, say hello, let us know that you are here. I see a few of you popping up. Here's what I'm doing. Kelli and I are not ignoring you as you are jumping in and saying hello. I really want to focus on Kelli. So I won't be acknowledging everybody as they're popping up, but please pop up so we know that you are here. And we'll address if you have any questions near the end. So let's jump on in. Kelli, you know me, I'm not going to hold back.
I'm excited.
I want to take you back to when you were in corporate and you were a rock star in corporate. I mean, you had a phenomenal career in corporate, and there was nothing that was going to hold you back because you were a single mom and you had your goals, not just to provide for your baby at that time, but you had to buy a house and very supportive parents, and you're going to take your education and you're going to climb that ladder. And you did. Share with us, share with us that day when you decided to change that all up.
Yeah. So to your point, I absolutely did. I've been in marketing for 20 years. I worked on the advertising agency side and the corporate marketing side. I loved both. I really loved the ability to work with big organizations with big budgets and to do a lot with my marketing teams. I loved coaching and mentoring. And about 2.5 years ago, I decided that the role I was working within didn't work for me. It didn't fit my lifestyle. It didn't fit who I was as a person. And it didn't really bring me joy. And one of the things that I sort of in that time frame where I just wasn't happy with myself, with the time I was devoting to my family, to the time I was home with my family, I decided that I needed to find a way to still do what I love, which is marketing, to still work with teams and to coach and mentor marketing professionals and other business professionals, but to find joy. And so I went in one day and I resigned. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next, but I knew that I was unhappy. I knew that I didn't have joy, and I knew that I wasn't showing up as the best version of Kelli everywhere that I wanted to, which was at home with my children, in their schools, in my marriage, with my friends. And I also knew that if I had more joy in my work, I would show up more as Kelli within all of the work that I did. So I resigned without a plan. And it's worked out. I wouldn't necessarily recommend anyone resign their full-time role without a plan, but it took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do. And I found joy in that, I'm going to call it that void of the time in which I didn't have a job and I didn't have a plan. But I really recentered in what brought me joy. And then I attracted new opportunity.
I love it. And by the way, everybody, if you heard this word from Kelli multiple times in that last statement that she made, is the word joy. And I'm a big believer in when we are joyful, and we can't be, when we're joyful, confident, high esteem, belief, trust, we can't rule at 100%, because then we go into that perfectionism. We're human. It ebbs and it flows. It goes up and it's down, and and whatever's going on in our lives is how some of that will show up. But I'm a big believer is when we are joyful, we're more in tune to our bodies. We're more in tune to ourselves. And we can show up more transparently, more with vulnerability and authenticity. And that's an A word that's thrown around a lot. I do use it, but I really truly mean we do show up with all of that, with joy and ease, without that grind. We get into that grace. So I know the word joy is so important to you too. That's like part of your values, is that word. It's not like
100%.
it's part of your values, that the word joy. And and one of the things in the past that you shared with me is the reason why that joy and these steps that you are taking with a best friend from high school, husband. But you shared one. Kelli, I'm going to take this into my grave, these words about your daughter.
Yes.
So share those words with everybody, please.
So I have a daughter, and she's 10 now. I like to excuse me, I like to call her my mini me, but actually she's almost my height, and she'll be taller than me. So she's going to be my big me. But I believe that my job as her mom, as her mentor, as her coach, as her future friend — I don't think we should be friends with our kids as children, because there has to be a parent-child relationship — but as her future friend, I believe it's my job to show her how women show up in business, and to show her how women should be expected to show up in business, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I am so fortunate and really appreciative of all of the women who have come before me in business. And I feel like it's my job for my daughter and the next generations to be a trailblazer for women in business now. And so for me, everything I do, every business professional relationship I get into, I think about it from that perspective of, how do I show my daughter? How do I make change in the business setting so that my daughter has all of the doors open to her? She has all of the ability to be who she is, whatever that means. She doesn't have to be in marketing. She doesn't have to be a business owner, but what she does have to be is respected and appreciated. And she has to be able to find her own joy and to feel comfortable in that joy. And so for me, it's the decisions that I've made over the last 2.5 years. The decision to walk out of a full-time corporate role because it wasn't the role that I'd want my daughter to have. It was for me to decide that I was going to stop straightening my hair, chemically all of the time, because I want my daughter to embrace and be happy with who she is and the way that she was naturally born in her natural curls. The many decisions that I've made have really centered around being an example and a role model for my daughter. And so very intentionally finding joy in knowing that I am that role model, and that I am a trailblazer, and that I'm helping to show her how to be comfortable in her own skin.
I love it. That's part of your mark, part of your legacy. That one day we were discussing that, and I'm serious. I will take that one to my grave. I love hearing things like that, because it really, it really lands. Those are things that that makes us human connections, and really, really connect with other women, other people, other audiences, with our audiences and stuff as well. I love the word trail blazing. You know, that's a little bit about the one book that Brene Brown wrote, you know, Dare to Lead. You know,
Mhm.
we do have to trailblaze. And one of my clients yesterday was just saying, you know, it's doing things no matter what, even if you are alone, and standing out there alone and trailblazing, as opposed to going with the status quo and staying in a box. You know, staying in a box. You know, I'm supposed to drive to work in a brick and mortar and be a corporate person, and there are people out there, especially we need women out there doing that, because we need them,
Absolutely.
the floors, the ceilings, and we need that. And we
The
also
walls,
boom, expand.
shattering it all. Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. You know, and we also need women trailblazing into their passion and their beliefs, and whatever that may look like. It could be volunteer, it could be like yourself, you know, owning a business, running a business, partnering up with one of your business with your husband, who's just as handsome as the day is long. You know, it's doing things. It's doing things where society doesn't say you are to be, do, all of this, because I lived like
Yes.
that for many, many, many years, which
I
choked
have
down
to.
my voice, took away my self-expression. I did it
Yes.
to myself, and I mean, no one else. I did it to myself. So I love it. You are really, really owning that, you know, and it's. I feel like you're right here in my room when you talk about joy, like you're sitting right next to me, because it's so passionately comes through, you know, absolutely. So Kelli, tell me what's some of the things that you have to deal with, some of the challenges that you deal with clients and around marketing and that visibility piece and things like that, that we women struggle. There are challenges around that.
You know, it's interesting too. One of, you know, as I sort of level set in that gap, right, that void that I talked about between being full-time and deciding to start my own business and to be a fractional chief marketing officer, some of the things that I decided that my non-negotiables, one, I have to find joy in what I'm doing. I have to enjoy the people that I'm working with. And I want to have relationship, right? It's not just we work together, but I want to like them, and I want them to be people I'd want to get a coffee with, or a glass of wine. Um, and so when it's those non-negotiables, it's the I don't want to work with people I don't want to work with, and I won't. And I have those decisions that I get to make as a business owner. And so it's a little bit different from me than interviewing and, you know, asking the questions of the potential employer. It's really, if we're going to sign up to work together, we have to have a good chemistry. We have to be people that have some shared values. And one of those shared values has to be a belief structure in my value. If you want me to come and work with your organization, you have to believe that I bring value. And with that, then there's a sense of responsibility from my perspective, right? That I have to do my best work. I have to show up for that organization on a regular basis. I have to truly be a strong marketing leader, and they have to trust me to do that. And some of that level setting is done early on in the conversation. And I've been really fortunate with the clients that I've had over the last 2.5 years now, that we've really level set on those shared values and that shared belief in marketing and the importance of marketing, and you brought me in to be your marketing leader, and allowing me to do that. Very different than how I felt as a marketing leader in corporate, where it was a lot of times I spent more time proving my value and my worth, and my team's value and my team's worth, and the sort of the value of marketing, even in a way in which it was unproductive, and it didn't bring me joy. I found that in corporate. I found that in advertising agency, client relationships to some extent as well. And so when I think about what am I doing today, I think it's I show up differently. I show up very to that word authentic again, very authentically, as what you see is what you get. I am who I am. I have a track record. I can talk about what I've done. I can talk about why I've done what I've done. And I'm always very transparent about what I don't know. to the point in the beginning of the conversation where you mentioned, Kim, this is my first LinkedIn Live show. I was so excited to do this show because I wanted to be on the show and to have this conversation with you. I wanted to have a conversation, and I also wanted to learn LinkedIn Live because transparently, I've never done it before. And as a marketing leader, it's important for me to understand all of the ways to communicate and to evaluate those and to transparently tell my clients, I've never done LinkedIn Live before. It might be something we'd want to consider for your business, but let me find out first.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I like that. Let me find out first, and being transparent. It's that high leveraging language that we use, as opposed, a real good example here, Kelly, as opposed to saying, look, let's take a look at LinkedIn Live. However, I don't know much about it right now, but let me go and investigate and come on back. As opposed to saying, I'm going to lie. I'm going to fake it until I make it because I'm very concerned I may lose this client because I don't know about something. First of all, I don't want to sound like we can't or we don't and all of that, but we don't know everything. And the
No.
most power-filled thing we can do is say, look, I don't have the answer right now. Give me 24, 48 hours and I'll get back with you for the
Yes.
answer. That's the high stakes conversations, the high stakes words that we need to be using, as opposed, for an
Agreed.
example, the other day I had a client say, yeah, I should have told them I can't do this presentation within a week's time. I should have said 2 weeks so I could be better prepared. No, we don't say so that we're better prepared. But it's like, no, I cannot do this presentation for you next week. Let's look at another day, date, and time because I'm running business or I'm an executive leader in corporate or whatever the case may be. And it's really
Yeah.
showing up strong like that. I hear when you talk, Kelly, I hear not just knowing our values, which, by the way, everybody on here that is listening, I don't know if you've ever taken a fun value, how to discover your values with a word list. I've done that with some clients. I'm a big getting down into your top 10 values and then narrow it down to your top 5 and just know those 3 to 5 at any given time, those values, and just allowing those to evolve and change. But values, oh my gosh, and boundaries. Values and oh my gosh, boundaries. Wait, boundaries. And boundaries where you don't have to shame someone else about it because you feel that they're pushing it, and to know that you are in your body embracing that it is okay to have your boundaries. Now, I'm not saying, now I'm going to date myself when I say this, lost in space, force field, doesn't mean that force field boundary isn't going to maybe, flow a little bit like this, but make sure you're doing it at your choice. And know your no's and know your yeses, and know your
Agreed.
yeses and know your no's. And I think that I don't think I know, and I truly believe, Kelly, that's a huge one with you in a very short amount of a time as a business owner.
It truly is. And I think it's really important for everyone in business to know who you are, know your values, know your the values that really shape you as a person and how you want to show up in the world. I talk a lot about personal branding. And from a personal branding perspective, my values shape the Kelli Williams personal brand. And it's my personal and my professional brand. I show up the same way personally as I do professionally. There may be some tweaks. I'm a bit more professional because you should be in a professional setting. I'm the same person with those same boundaries because they're based on those same values. And so for me, as I made that transition from agency world to corporate world to independent world, what I found was my boundaries had been broken, changed, were almost non-visible in my full-time roles. That was a Kelli Williams fault, right? There's no reason that a full-time employee can't have boundaries. But it was something I just had never allowed myself to do. But in that timing, in that gap, in that time that I was deciding what was I going to do next to bring myself joy, I really set those boundaries, and I knew what they were, and I've been very open and transparent as I've started new client engagements around those. I will always take the opportunity to go and be part of the parent teacher organization at my kids' school. If there's an event or an opportunity for me to be a part of those, I will put that on my calendar. I'll do it in advance, right? I'm not going to just cancel a meeting, but I will put it in advance. I will block the time and I will go and be part of the parent teacher organization, and I will show up for my kids because my family is my number one priority. And I've structured my life to do that. And with my clients, I have boundaries around this is the time as a fractional chief marketing officer. And when you hear fractional, it's part-time, right? So I'm contracted to share a portion of my time with one client and another client. And so having boundaries around these are the times that I show up for your business, and having boundaries around that because I want to show up as my best self for both of those clients while also showing up as my best self for my family. Those are boundaries that I've set. And I feel like the boundaries actually make me better. They actually help me to show up better for my clients and to be a better business leader. I'm really proud of my boundaries. In fact, I almost boast about them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love that because, we live in it's not almost like we live in an either or society when you would have both ands. And that
Mhm.
both and needs to be a part of not just self-care. Listen, I'm so tired of seeing posts about women and self-care and they do one day of self-care and then that is it. Okay, people, can we get past the self-care? And don't get me wrong, I'm all about the manicures and the pedicures and all of
Self-care is
it.
great.
I'm all about it. I'm all
Mhm.
about it. But let's get into soul care. And that
Yes.
soul care needs to be done every single solitary day. And if you don't have some strong boundaries and values, it's going to slip by the wayside. And again, just because someone emails you doesn't mean you have to be sitting. First of all, I don't know how anybody sits perched on emails or even a text message.
Yes.
For an example, a lot of people who are on the show today listening, like they know I'm an early morning person. And before I get running with my day, not when I first get up, but before I get running with my day, that means getting dressed and either going downstairs and working out or out walking with Grace. I do my text messages and answer the emails. Do you know
Mhm.
how many people get angry at me because I'm text messaging at 6 a.m. or 6:30 in the morning? Listen, sister, you don't have to get up and answer my text message. Take care of it at 10 o'clock tonight. And by the way, when you text message me at 10, should I get angry at you because I'm flatlined at 10? So we need to get over the fact of stop having to jump
Mhm.
because someone text messaged you or someone emailed you. And it brings up that I am not enough, that perfectionism. And then
Yes.
we go into desperation mode where we're making desperate decisions. And then the next day we're like this. Oh my God, I'm exhausted and flatlined because we spent our energy around feeling like we have to jump.
Yes. And we didn't have enough time to rest, right? And so I talk a lot. My passion is I have a lot of passions. One of my passions is coaching and mentoring professionals. Young professionals just starting out, professionals in their career. It's something that's so important to me. And one of the things that I always talk to teams and individuals about is setting boundaries and being okay with it. Don't apologize because you're taking a vacation and you're going to not respond to emails. Don't apologize because something popped up and you didn't see it because it popped up last night after you were sleeping and you didn't get to it until you opened your computer at 9 the next morning. Never apologize for taking time to be you. Um, really be comfortable and happy to say, I didn't see it because I was doing something that was not work right now. And these are the times in which I do work. And I will respond to you within these time frames. And as an independent person, if you have organizations that you work with that you're giving a portion of your time, be really transparent upfront, build credibility with them by letting them know your boundaries, letting them know these are the times in which I will be engaging within your organization. Does this work for you? Being open to adjusting to make sure it does work and then sticking to that. I don't do client emails or phone calls or texts or chat messages on a weekend because that's family time. I don't do it in the evening unless for some reason maybe I have family time during the day and that gives me more working time in the evening. Some of those things as an independent person I ebb and flow with. But one of the things that I do is when I send an email at 6 a.m., I schedule it. When I decide I'm going to work on Sunday because I'm going to take Monday morning off, I schedule those emails because I don't want anyone to see an email from me on Sunday at 8 p.m. and think, oh, I need to respond to Kelli. Please don't. I want to set that expectation with everyone, and I do that up front. So that's part of why I schedule those emails and why I maybe don't respond to an email from a Thursday at 6 p.m. until Monday, because I maybe am not working with that client again until Monday. And my clients, because I have good relationships with them and have set those boundaries, they understand and they actually appreciate it. And I encourage everyone, if you're a full-time employee, if you're a contract employee, set your boundaries, be transparent about your boundaries, and know that you're going to actually build credibility for that versus the other way where you feel like you have to apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wish I had seen your email at midnight on Sunday night. No.
I love that. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. First of all, that is the I am so sorry, or I am sorry, or I'm sorry, is where we shrink down.
Agreed.
Because we don't want to ruffle others, or we do not want to take up space in the room. And that I'm sorry is an overused word, very overused word.
I agree.
Being apologetic, for something that you legitimately did wrong and it needs apologizing, absolutely. Take your responsibility, own your own
100%.
own your boldness around that. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I do first of all, I don't like running late, and running late to me is like 5 minutes running late. I just always let the person know I'm just running a couple minutes behind. And when I arrive into the meeting, I don't say I'm sorry for running late. I simply say, thank you so much for being flexible. It lowers that energy of that that you're trying to make peace and lay the land down. I call it the lay of the land. I do this with clients. Lay of the land, lay of the land. Here's what I'm available for. Here's why I'm Monday through Friday. This is, send this over. I need this 3 days before, da, 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 da. And if you can't get it in 3 days before, that's fine. Just don't expect me to, get to all of that. And there's no apologies necessary with me. I mean, seriously, but it's getting clear with the lay of the land. It's setting the stage. It's setting, here's what I'm available for, and here's what I'm not available for, and here's what I expect on you as well.
Correct.
As the client, so that things are clean and clear and don't get messy.
And there's no disappointment that way, right? It's, to some extent, it's like any other relationship. My husband and I have very clear expectations for each other. He's a better cook than I am. I clean quite a bit better than he does, right? And there's some really clear expectations. There's never a question of, am I going to make dinner tonight? Because nobody wants to eat it. And I don't really question, is he going to clean up after himself after he cooks? I'm pretty sure he's not. We've set those expectations. And so some of the conflict or that maybe would happen early in marriages, we've taken care of it. And the same is true with my clients, right? We set those expectations. I'm not going to raise you an email on a weekend unless it's something urgent. And if it is, I'm always there for that. But on a regular basis, it's much more, here's the lay of the land. Here's when I'm available. Here's when I'm going to show up as my best self for your organization. And here's the time in which I'm not.
Yes. It's interesting, Kelli. We go in and we launch these rock star phenomenal businesses, right? And I hear so many clients, so many women say, I'm working harder than I was when I was in corporate, and for somebody I'm like, why? I mean, what aren't we the bosses? Aren't we, so what? You pause in the middle of the day, which I'm big on pause and the power of pause, and go out in the backyard and take 5 minutes, or schedule in 15 minutes where you go walk around the block. Or sometimes, and I'm with you, my husband loves to cook, thank God, because I'm not cooking, but I can clean up a mean mess, let me tell you. But, if there's something special that I want for dinner that I'm going to add to his menu, I may, like for an salad, I may go wash and do a little bit of prepping just to walk out of my office. We own the businesses. We get to call the times on when we are working, and don't control, but manage that schedule and manage how you are going to show up. by the way, is part of a bold voice, is
Mhm.
really getting clear in front and center. And if you do get those clients that are constantly pushing those boundaries, then maybe that's not the right client, because you are going to have
Correct.
people in your life that will push them. Sure, we all need reminders and, and realigning and pulling things back. But when you are around someone who's constantly disrespecting and pushing,
Mhm.
I would question, are they the ideal client? Now, family's family, which we won't go down that road today, but clients, you can, you have choice. You can pick and choose. Do you want to continue on working with them and such like that? So I,
Correct.
I want to, oh, go ahead, Kelly, go ahead.
I was going to say correct. And I believe that that's also true in a full-time employee perspective, right? So as a professional, we get to decide where we want to be. We get to decide which organizations we want to work with, and if they want to work with us back, right? It's a relationship. It's is this the right corporate culture, the right role, the right opportunity to work with as an employee, as a contract employee, as a freelance independent person, regardless of the status. It's does this align with my values? Does this place align with my values? Do the people I work with in this place align with my values? Do we have a good rapport? And do I find joy in this environment? Those are decisions that we have to continually assess. But then also, something I personally struggle with is the reminder that I get to make some of those decisions. To your point, Kim, of taking those pauses. I'm guilty. I'm guilty of forgetting to pause. I love what I do, and I will get so deep into what I'm doing, and I'll be working and working and working, and then I'll realize on a Friday night, I'm exhausted. I worked all week. I never paused. I was up early. I was working with some client things. I was working on my business. I was doing something else. I was doing something for one of the organizations that I volunteer with. And all of a sudden, I've been working 60 hours this week and I'm exhausted. I'm not happy. My kids have barely seen me and want to know why I refuse to play catch with them. And I have to take myself back and say, wait a second, time out again. What's most important? Recenter, think about it, take a breath, and then start again. And giving myself the grace is something that I've learned to do over the last 2.5 years of every week's a new week, every day is a new day, and I get to start over again.
Mhm.
And I maybe didn't get it right yesterday, and I maybe won't get it right tomorrow, but I'm going to try again. And I'm going to try again. And I'm going to continue to recenter on what brings me joy, what's most important to me, and how can I show up and do my best work everywhere that I am. And part of my best work is playing catch with my daughter who loves softball. Part of my best work is playing soccer with my son who loves to play soccer. Part of my best work is showing up in a client meeting and bringing new ideas and supporting my team.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I can check the box and say I've done all of those things and I don't feel depleted, I've won.
Yeah. I think when we get into that depletion mode, first of all, that depletion mode takes us down rabbit holes of, the anxiety, the depression, and feeling alone. And for any of you, and I'll just say this, is, when you get to that point and you're feeling edgy, point blank, I get bitchy. I am nipping my poor dogs get it. It's like, God, Kim, they're dogs, and I'm like, come on, it's like, whoa, 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 time out. What's
Yes.
really going on here? And
Mm-hmm.
I also want to acknowledge, you said one of my favorite words is that grace, allowing that grace. I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
double G, grit and grace girl, forget the grind, because I grind. Boy, did I used to grind. And I was sick all the time and stressed
Yes.
out and depleted. Again, we step into these businesses that we own. And even if you are not in a business and you're in corporate, it's really getting clear on those values and what's
Mm-hmm.
important to you and those boundaries. And look,
Correct.
if you got boundaries within corporate, because I get this asked a lot, how can corporate women really own their voices? Well, it's like you just said momentarily ago, sure, you show up professionally to meetings, but you're still yourself. And that's it,
100%.
doesn't matter whether you're in corporate, whether you're across the street at a friend's house, at a party, or in
Mm-hmm.
your own business. It's knowing yourself and still showing up at yourself, and how to maneuver that is with it, whatever lane that you are in. But the moment you are sitting in a group and you are in your head thinking, oh, if I say this, they'll think I'm smart enough, or I'm going to look great. I won't lose this contract. I'll get the job promotion. You have lost sight on your true, authentic, bold voice.
I could not agree with you more. The that old saying of being the smartest person in the room. I always feel like, gosh, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I'm really smart. I'm really great at what I do. But I want to surround myself with other people who are really smart and really great at what they do, and with people who can be humble enough to not want to look like or appear to be the smartest person in the room, but also humble enough to say, gosh, I don't know the answer to that either. Let's think about it and let's put all of our brains together to come up with a solution. Those are the people that I want to work with, the people that bring me joy, the people that make me better, the people that say, yeah, that's an interesting idea. And, right, here's an idea that you just shared. And I have another thought that can make it even better and better and better. Those are the rooms I want to be in. And so sitting in the rooms where at any time I feel like I'm not enough, or that I'm not bringing enough value, or any of the other kind of negative things that could come out of speaking my voice, those are the rooms I don't want to be in. And I'm not in them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting really crystal clear on those rooms and tables and stages that you want to be around and how to elevate. And it's like you said, and, you
Yes.
know, and really leaning into those conversations, because those are the conversations that we tend, let's agree to disagree, but let's all walk out elevated and very empowered and, growth, and bring these conversations to the table, because I'm a big proponent. More minds are better than just one of my own. Ugh,
Absolutely.
sometimes are not it's not the greatest thing in the world, and I love to learn. And it's also like you said,
Mhm.
you wake up and it's a new day. I get to start over again and try at it again. That's why the other word I'm not a big proponent on is mistakes. I believe
Mhm.
mistakes are lessons, and they're lessons
Agreed.
for us to try at it again and
Mhm.
evolve and empower ourselves and grow, so that in turn we can do it with other people as well, whether we're pulling people up with us, walking side by side, or looking to someone who's walked a few steps ahead of us as well.
100%. I always talk to anyone that will listen, not just clients, about the fact that, as a marketer, as a mom, as a person, I like to try new things. Some of them are going to work and they're going to be amazing. Some of them aren't going to work, but we will always learn from the things that don't, right? As I talked about, this is my first LinkedIn live show. I'm really excited about it. And I think this may be a platform that will work for some of my clients in the future. And maybe it won't. But knowing enough to say, yep, I recommend it and here's why. And if it does or if it doesn't, being humble and gracious enough to say, I think it's working or I think it's not. And here's why. And here's what I suggest next. Let's talk about it and let's bring all the ideas to the table and level up. Continue to level together, because again, I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room, but I definitely want to be credible in my space, in my seat.
And indeed, you are. I know that for a fact, because you've allowed me into your world, and we've gotten to know each other. We're like soul sisters. First time
We really are.
we
We really are.
hello, we met on LinkedIn, but seriously, the first time we talked, we are like, do I know you? Do I know you? So it's I love serendipitous moments like that, and that blossom into beautiful relationships. But yes, it's all coming back. We're such an instantaneous society, and we're so numbers driven, but it's like, let's back up, let's look at the relationship, let's set, a lot of people don't know this about me. My first business is, I have a fitness business, and it was very large at one time. It's very small now. I still have it. And I used to watch when people are like, I got to change up the way I eat. It's like, okay, but let's set a nice, beautiful timeline. Let's implement a new routine here. 90 days. We're talking 3 months, 90 days. No,
Mhm.
they want by Friday, and this is Monday. It's like,
Yes.
well, geez, it didn't take you from Monday to Friday to put weight on, or, to
Mhm.
go through birthing a baby or changing our
Correct.
habits. It takes
Mhm.
time to change up a habit.
Mhm.
So let it. let it instill into us and reevaluate, at a timeline mark to maybe do some tweaking or whatever. So I love that, like with your clients, it's like,
Mhm.
let's come back. Let's let it grow and do some marinating, but then let's come back to the table and do some real evaluations, because it could be something as a little tiny tweak that needs to shift.
Correct.
You
Hmm.
never know. I want to pause here for a moment. A lot of people, Francine is on here, and she said,
Hey,
"Oh,
Francine.
hi, Kim and Kelly. Thank you for a joyful show. I love it. Okay, you're not going to get anything less from joy when you're around Kelly. I can say that." And Sarah, thank you. She's slowly clapping over there. Such solid advice that she needs to keep this front and center in your day. And look at,
Good.
I've got a post-it over here. I've got an index card over here. I've got another index card over here. We're visual. Our eyes are in front
Hmm.
of us. We're visual. Sarah, if you need to be writing down those boundaries or some kind of mantra or something where you're telling yourself to stay grounded into your energetic boundaries, your whatever the case may be, we're here to support you. And yay, girl, go. And I want to thank everyone else that's been tuning in today. So, Kelly, a huge besides walking out of corporate without a plan, and Kelly did say she does not recommend that.
I do not recommend that, but I also don't recommend staying in an environment that's keeping you from being your best self.
Yes. Yep.
So I don't recommend just walking out without a plan, but I also never recommend to stay in a place in which you don't feel like I felt like I was suffocating.
Mhm.
And that, right? I didn't want to suffocate. And so I would say give yourself the grace to know if you just have to make a move, but ideally have a plan B before you make that move.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Share with us another bold movement that you have done in your life.
Well, Kim, you talked to this a little bit earlier. You talked to the fact that I was a single parent, and I was. I had my first son, my 25-year-old. My two boys are 18 years apart, 25 and 7. I had my 25-year-old my senior year in high school, and I had him. I gave him up for adoption, and then I changed my mind. I knew that again. I felt like I was suffocating. Interesting enough, I'm actually adopted, and so wonderful adoptive parents who are fantastic and have unconditionally loved me my entire life supported me in giving my son up for adoption because that's what they knew. They knew that, if someone wasn't quite ready to be a parent yet, they should give their child up for adoption. And they supported me in that process. But when I knew I was suffocating and I couldn't do that and I wanted my son back, I went back to my supportive parents and said, gosh, I need to do this. And they once again supported me. They supported me in that process, which was life changing, life altering. I talk about my son and, not so much pressure on him, but he's my reason. He's the reason that I finished high school and I went to college and I went to grad school and I took off in corporate America like to be a trailblazer because I knew that I needed to be self sufficient and be able to support him. But that process of going back to my parents, the parents who supported me in giving my son up for adoption because that's what they knew, that was the hardest conversation I'd ever had. And I put it off to the last minute. I'm also a procrastinator at times and much more at 17 than I probably am today. But the very last minute, I had 10 business days to make that decision and to change my mind. And the evening before the 10th business day, I couldn't do it. And there were some life altering decisions that happened that evening. And I went to my parents in the middle of the night and said, hey, I want my son back. I can't do this, in tears, just bawling. Um, and the reaction of these amazing people that raised me and loved me so much was, well, then let's do it. And my dad and I, we got on a plane and we flew from Minnesota to California and went and got my son back. It was the hardest decision and the boldest move I've ever made in my life. And out of it, I'm so glad that I have him. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to raise him. I I wish that he had never gone because I also know that that was very devastating on the other side for the potential adoptive parents. But the most important life altering decision I ever made. And it really did change the trajectory of my life. And it changed the trajectory of my son's life as well, to have been raised by his biological mom and to watch me uh, as a child raising a child grow into being an adult raising a child, and now as an adult raising children. In a different relationship. My son says all the time, "You're such a different mom now than you were when you raised me." And I say, "Well, of course I am. I'm not 17 anymore. I'm no longer trying to prove to anyone that I am enough or that I am a good mom or that I'm not going to just be a statistic. I'm not trying to prove anything. Instead, I'm just enjoying and finding joy in being a mom." So I'm very different in my parenting style. But I think that translates into, again, I don't show up differently in different environments. I'm different today than I was 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, when I made that bold decision.
You know, it's interesting to have those suffocating feelings when you were 17, and also you experience them as adult, is basically your intuition, your inner,
Yeah,
it's your soul, your intuition, your gut, your heart. It's everything going scream, 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 scream. Let me out because I am suffocating, and this is, this is wrong. I mean, logically, you were saying probably at that time one thing, something else to yourself, when your body was like, no, this is so, so wrong. And wow, it's such a young age to be able to, first of all, it's such a young age to show up and say to your parents, I'm pregnant. And then
mm-hmm.
adoption, because you were a teen in high school mom. And then to go back to them and say, this is wrong. I need to bring my son back, and you shared that story with me privately before. And one of the things that, your dad is an adopted parent, as he's
Mm-hmm.
sitting there, because that could have happened to them. And
Oh,
all
absolutely.
their emotions that, that
Mm-hmm.
they were experiencing as well. And still showing up as, very supportive parents, as their daughter, adopted or not, as, biological or not,
Absolutely.
as their daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes my heart skip, flutters and beats every time I hear that from you, Kelli. It's just so amazing, the insights that you had very young and the insights that you have now. It's, people say it's, oh, grounding and older wisdom. It's just wisdom. It's wisdom. And so key what you just said. So key. Stop trying to prove myself to
Mm-hmm.
people, and that
Yeah,
I am enough right here in this moment. I am enough.
correct.
And I don't have to prove, I don't have to, I always envision like I stick my chest out, my shoulder, I sit like a rooster, because I got to prove myself. We don't need to be proving ourselves. We don't. And it goes back to the beginning, we were talking in the beginning of this conversation, that's that Brene Brown, that dare to lead. Sometimes we're going to be out there and look around, there's going to be nobody around, but we have to
Mm-hmm.
trailblaze. We have to pioneer. And there are going to be times we need to show up even though others are not showing up.
Correct. We have to show up when it's important. And to your point, you talked about that was a feeling, right? When I talk about suffocating, those are two really, really pivotal points in my life that I can point to and say, those were times I know I was suffocating. I know that I wasn't showing up and being my best self, and I made a difference. I made a change. There's smaller times, right, throughout my life that I can point to where I've had smaller feelings of that, of the I'm not being my best self. I don't feel comfortable in what's happening right now. And I have to say something. I have to do something. I have to make a change. Um, and being comfortable in those times to say, not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to support me, but I know what's right for me right now. That doesn't mean that it's always going to be right for me tomorrow or in a week or in a year or in 5 years, right? I talk a lot about over the last year and a half with the pandemic. My husband and I made the decision to keep our kids home for a full year from school. Their school was back in session, friends were back in session. We kept our kids home. It was a decision that we made. Was it the right decision? I don't know, but it was absolutely the right decision in the time. And we stand behind that decision and are really happy that we had that extra time at home with our kids. If I was to do it over again with what I know today, would I have made that the same decision? I don't know, but that's not the point. The point is I made a decision in a period of time and it was the right decision at that time and I stood in it.
Mhm. Yes.
And I just
And
encourage people to do that.
yes, and letting go and not holding regrets and second
Yes.
guessing and
Mhm.
again, absolutely. And a lot of people on here know I lost my father in January, and part of my grief is I'm second guessing myself right now. I could have done, and I have to immediately catch
You
myself
can't.
and go, no, I was making decisions in the midst of a pandemic, and on my toes quickly, and
Mhm.
knowing that I was enough in that moment, and I did
Yes.
everything I possibly could. And that's the same thing with decisions that we make, and not, oh, I'm regretting this or I'm hanging on to this. I'm a big believer when we are hanging on to something that we did in the past or hanging on to the regrets. Those are like quicksand, the mucky mucks of the mucky mud,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's
I
pulling
love that
us down,
analogy.
the mucks, it's pulling
Mhm.
us down. And then when we're worried about the future, and by the way, for those of you that are worrying about the future, you must have a crystal ball and I want to borrow it. And I'm being a little sarcastic and facetious, but seriously, when we're worrying about the future of something that hasn't even happened, that's where the anxiety goes up. And this is coming from
Mhm.
a recovering anxiety person, and control freak. It's learning how to be in this moment and keep moving one foot in front of the other, and again, like you said, knowing your values, implementing boundaries. Please don't drag people through trash because you have boundaries. Just own your boundaries. I mean, even if you're sharing your boundaries or not, energetically, vibrationally, empower those boundaries. Trust me, people will get it. People will get it. And learn
Mhm.
how to say no, also say yes, but really get intimate with that word no without a whole dissertation after the word no, because you don't get dissertations when you say yes. But without that no, and oh, I'm so sorry for saying no. And it's like, it's too much. It is too much. You dilute your values, your boundaries, the no, the yes. You're diluting your voice when you go into
Correct.
dissertations and having to justify for being you.
Mhm.
So, with all that being said, gosh, so many people have joined us today, and I want to wrap up and by thanking everybody that is being here, seeing some faces that I haven't seen in a while, and some faces that I will be seeing later this week. I want to thank everybody for jumping in, making comments, and Kelly and I will swing back around, not within the hour, but within 24 hours on the
Absolutely.
LinkedIn page and address everybody's comments, because I'm watching the comments come in. These comments are absolutely beautiful and they're so surreal and they're so transparent. But Kelly, I would love for you to close the show with some last final bold words.
Ooh, I feel like I have pressure now. Absolutely. I want to encourage everyone watching to really get clear on what's important to you. If you don't know what your guiding values are, that make you who you are, that are so important to the person that you are, I encourage you to figure it out. Spend some time really thinking about what's most important to you. What do you value in the world? I'm not asking what do you value in work. A value may be money for you. Um, but it's really what are the most important things to you? Document those and start to make decisions based on those values. Because when you're making value-based decisions, there's less second guessing.
Oh,
When you make value-based decisions, 2 years from now, when you look back on those decisions, there's less opportunity for regret because they were centered in knowing yourself. So that's my ask for everyone. Take the time. That's the self-help, the we talked about taking time and pampering yourself. To me, that's the best pampering you can give yourself. Know who you are, know your values so that you can use that set of values to make future decisions.
yes. I thank you so much. I love that. I love it very much. And again, it doesn't have to be monumental. It could be something
No.
very small that is leading towards the monumental choices and decisions. And absolutely, the tighter our boundaries, the less second guessing that we have. It's that beautiful that I envision. It's that beautiful platform. And thank you, Kelli. I want to close the show up. I was not going to use this, and I was scrambling to grab this, but I closed the show up in season one every time with this, and I've decided I'm going to do this every time because it's one of my favorites, and it's bold. So be bold enough to listen to your heart, and more so to follow it. Your heart has always known exactly who you are and what you are made of and what you are made for. Your heart has always known that you were meant for so much more and that you deserve to live feeling free. Start listening to your heart. It has always known the way, and that is by walk the earth. So I could not have opened up season two with one of the most predominant, fascinating females that follows her heart big freaking time. So, Kelli, thank you
Thank
for
you.
being my guest today. And if you would, please stay put right there.
I will.
Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Join me again right here for episode 2 in season 2 next week, same time, same place. That would be LinkedIn, Tuesday mornings at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for another guest. And again, we look forward to seeing you out there in LinkedIn land. Make it a great day, everybody, and just own your bold on your terms, on your terms. Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.